Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today we're talking about hybrid ships, again, of course, with the Kearsarge being released over the weekend. Now, hybrid ships have been a point of, I wouldn't say a huge point of contention with the majority of the player base, but there certainly is a fair few amount of players that they're tired of seeing planes in the game, and these ships are of course adding more planes into the game, and they don't want them to be there at all. But with the Issei and the Tone, I believe with most of the community, those ships got a pass because they were real, still historical ships that existed in real life. They were hybrid ships in real life, so forth and so on. Now, with the Issei and the Tone, the Issei by itself is actually incredibly well balanced. The torp bombers on there, they do maybe one torpedo's worth damage if you actually get them all on target, because the torpedoes of the Issei are laughably low damage torps, but you get 8 of them. If you do manage to land all 8, I believe it's the equivalent of one like tier 7 Japanese DD torp. And again, that's if you land all 8 on the target. And plus the Issei pays for it in that it's got 2 less guns than its tech line counterpart, that of course is not a full-on hybrid ship. And plus the gun angles on it are absolutely terrible. The ship's incredibly slow, so if it gets caught, it's pretty much dead. And, well, the gun angles are so bad, too, you can't even shoot going backwards at all. You have to show pretty much almost all of your broadside to get all the guns on target with the Issei. The Tone... Yeah, the Tone, it's just like, if you want a tier 8 Japanese cruiser, get the Atago. I don't know what their reasoning was, but with the Tone, they took the same planes that the Issei has, which are tier 6 planes, which don't have a lot of health, but at tier 6, of course, there's not a lot of AA there, so they work okay with the Issei. But with the Tone, which is a tier 8 cruiser, they get absolutely shredded. You get one less plane, and then the reload time on them is much longer than on the Issei. It has a I think a 3-minute reload time versus the 2-minute reload time on the Issei. So yeah, but the guns on the Tone are good, but then like the guns on the Atago are pretty much the same, and the Atago is just better at being a cruiser than the Tone. So with those two ships, I mean, like the first week like the Issei was released, it was pretty terrible at tier 6, because at tier 6 you still have a lot of the World War One era ships, or like the interwar period ships that don't have a lot of AA on them. So if you have a gang of Isseis on one side, it's not a great time. But being a player of tier 6, because it's pretty decent right now in terms of matchmaking, you don't get double up tier 2 too much, and it's just a lot closer battles down there in terms of distance and also how the battle goes as well. So I've been playing a bit of tier 6 recently over the past month or so. You may see an Issei every now and then. It's really not that big of a deal to deal with. But the Kearsarge, the monstrosity that it is, it's a boat, all right. It is in fact a boat that goes in the water and it has guns on it. It is a warship, and it does have a flight deck too. It's been criticized for its looks, of course. I think I also said in my review of it that it is the only American battleship that isn't drop dead gorgeous. And boy, American navies either makes incredibly beautiful ships or things that look like a floating brick. But anyway, how is the Kearsarge? Well, you can go watch my review for a full in-depth look at the Kearsarge, but overall the ship is good. Good in terms of how it performs in game, and also I believe in how well it is balanced. So let's talk about that here, the balance, which is of course probably the main thought of a lot of players that see this thing and haven't played it yet. They see a 12-gun battleship with planes. How the hell is this thing balanced? Well, let's start with the planes first off, because that's probably what most people want to know about. The planes themselves are actually incredibly well balanced. They are the Tiny Tim rockets, so when you get hit with them, it does hurt a bit, but you only get one squadron, and it works just like the Soviet CVs. One squadron, one attack. Which means with these planes, if you shoot down 2 of these planes, you just took 6 rockets away from your ship. And then, of course, with them being the rocket planes got nerfed hard a couple of patches ago when they added in the 5-second machine gun firing delay, which means that now even large ships like battleships and larger cruisers do have enough time to start turning their ship to where you don't have the optimum target lined up for you. Now, of course, a smart Kearsarge player will go after ships that can't maneuver, and in that case, yeah, if you connect all the rockets on target, which I don't think I've ever actually connected all of them. I normally get like a little bit over half because just the way that the dispersion is. You'll be doing about 13 to 14k and setting a couple of fires, which is very, very, very good. But those salvos aren't happening every salvo. And plus, two, again, if the ship has decent AA, they're probably going to shoot down one or two of your planes. These planes have a 5-second engine boost time. It takes 10 seconds for the engine boost to come off cooldown. There's no engine boost consumable, and there's no fighter consumable on these planes. So you can't do any of the CV tricks, like dropping fighters to kind of distract the AA. You can't slam down the throttle so the planes are going fast enough to kind of throw off the AA. You can't really do that. So sure, again, if the ship doesn't steer or have any chance to maneuver, yes, you will be doing a fair bit of damage to them, but again, we're talking about battleships here, and 15k to a battleship, it's a decent chunk of their health pool, but it's not going to absolutely wreck their day. Unlike something like the old MVR AP dive bombers that could do like freaking 30k to a battleship in one go because of its good old dispersion back in the day. Of course, that thankfully got nerfed finally. But anyway, so the planes themselves, too, another main concern about the planes is, of course, the spotting. And, yeah, sure, just like with any other CV planes, you can fly over the target, keep them spotted for a while. But at that point, you're now wasting time because you're in a battleship with 12, 16-inch guns, and all the time you're sitting there spotting a target, that's time that you're not doing any damage. And, yeah, that's a big waste of your time there. Now, of course, if the target has, like, 1,000 or 2,000 health left and you're just waiting for your team to shoot, I'm sure you can do that and confirm the kill with the planes, well, with the spotting done by the planes. But doing that for any longer than a minute or two, you are just wasting your time. Now, the planes do start reloading after you launch them, which I'm not 100% on board with that. I think maybe after 30 or 40 seconds of your planes being launched, then they should start to recover, because you could just fly around for 2 minutes and then drop your rockets and go back and have another flight ready. But again, at that point, you are wasting a lot of time, especially at higher tier matches with how the matches flow. So the planes, in short, they're pretty balanced, and you're not normally going around chunky people for 13 or 14k every attack. Like I said, you can do that, but most of the times I'm finding the attacks are ranging from like 7 to 8k, and that's with the ships maneuvering. And again, you can only really go after large ships like battleships and large cruisers. Anything, well, even a lot of the large cruisers that have fast rotor shift times, good luck hitting them. Like the Zal, it's a very nimble cruiser. You probably won't be able to land many rockets on her. But anyway, so next up's the guns, of course. So the guns are the other main feature of the Kearsarge. They have 12 16-inch guns at tier 9, which is a lot of firepower, and they are the North Carolina's guns, however. So you have the 702 meter a second shell velocity, which is quite bad. By tier 8 standards, that's bad on the North Carolina, but the North Carolina has 2.1 Sigma to back that up, and you can fit the Special American Aiming Systems modules 1 and 2, which gives you a buff to your range, and then the second module gives you an 11% buff to your dispersion. So that's pretty good right there. And they only took away 0.1 Sigma. North Carolina has 2.0 Sigma. Kearsarge has 1.9. So yeah, the guns are pretty good, but again, firing at longer ranges with that velocity is kind of pain. So at higher tier matches, and keep in mind this is a tier 9 ship, you're going to have to fire at that range quite a bit, and it is incredibly frustrating because at those ranges, it feels like the shells take an eternity to get there. They take about 20 seconds at maximum range. But yeah, and anybody that's playing the slightest bit of attention to you will be easily able to dodge you, which means you have to get close in with this ship that has this giant superstructure on it with the flight tanker that has 19 millimeters of armor that everything and their mom can pin at tier 9 and tier 10. So you have to play a little bit closer. Now, the match you're watching right now is probably like the most ideal match for the Kearsarge because I managed to get on the flank, and the team's too busy dealing with the enemy team's too busy dealing with my team, so I get kind of left alone over here. So I have a field day, and in this type of situation, any tier 9 battleship's going to have a field day with, of course, a distracted enemy team in front of them. But the Kearsarge is actually a pretty darn good, well balanced ship, like I just went through. So we've gone from the Issei, which was a pretty decent hybrid ship in terms of its balance too. Now, of course, when you could get 3 of them in a division together, especially at tier 6, that was kind of a nightmare. Then we had the Tone, which was absolutely subpar in my opinion. But now we have the Kearsarge, which is pretty darn good, but not really because of its planes. It doesn't really rely on its planes to do too much damage. Its main guns are really its source of its damage. And what's really interesting is that both the planes and the guns require a pretty decent amount of skill to use. Like I just said, the guns, the velocity is incredibly slow, so you have to lead the target and predict how they're going to maneuver far more than you have to with a lot of other tier 9 ships guns. I mean, shoot, especially looking at some of the ships that we've just gotten recently with the German battle cruisers, the Italian battleships, the velocities are much better than the Kearsarges. And then the rocket planes, where you have that 5-second firing delay, and rockets are probably by far the weak, well, not probably by far, they are by far the weakest armament of any CV in the game right now. So you take both of those elements, put it on one ship, and you get a pretty darn good ship. Now, of course, it does have 12 guns, which, doesn't really matter what caliber guns you have at tier 9. When you have 12 of them, it's going to do pretty well. I mean, even the Italian battleships with the Colombo with its 16 guns with terrible accuracy, it still does pretty well thanks to, well, 1, sap, and 2, just the sheer volume of fire. So now, of course, the question is, looking forward, are they going to keep adding in these hybrid ships? Well, if you look at how well the past ones have done, the Issei sold incredibly well just on its historical elements alone. And then, of course, I think when people realized how derpy it was when you got 3 in a division, it did pretty darn well. The Tone, I probably sold well on its historical merits, but I don't ever see a Tone when I'm in battle. And I've played quite a bit. Well, I do play quite a bit at higher tier, and I really honestly can't tell you the last time I saw a Tone, except for the week that when the ship came out. But the Kearsarge, it is its release week, and I have seen quite a few of them, but I haven't really been seeing stacks of them on either side like with the Issei when it came out, which is interesting because this is arguably the best hybrid ship that's been introduced, but it hasn't really seemed to have sold that much. Now, of course, it's a tier 9, it's like $80, and plus you just had the whole CC thing a few months ago. But it's also a coal ship too, so you can get it for free. I think that's a huge plus anytime you can get a premium ship for free, especially one that's as good as this. Like I said yesterday, I wouldn't really recommend you go out and get this as your first premium ship, especially your first high-tier premium ship, because of the learning curve with the guns and the rocket planes, but it is a pretty solid one all in all. Now, in my personal opinion, I don't think they really need to focus on adding in more hybrid ships. I think the 3 that we have in game, they're nice kind of one-off ships. But other than that, I mean, especially with submarines coming around the corner, I think we have enough wonky stuff in game, like the submarine homing torpedoes. Now you got to worry about the Kearsarge and its rocket planes and its 16-inch 12-gun broadside, all in all. But it is interesting looking at where they might go in the future, because with subs, we have the I-400, the Japanese aircraft carrier submarines, which are real steel ships that were really produced during the Second World War. They were absolutely massive submarines. They could carry 3 planes each. So those might be right around the corner too. Although I think we're giving those well enough not to release those bad boys right after submarines get released, because that would be a very interesting time to say the least. Now, we also have to remember that hybrid ships get put in their base class, which means even though the Kearsarge has planes, it's still considered a battleship. So, of course, it gets battleship matchmaking, and you can have 2 or 3 of these on the same team, which, with rocket planes, I don't think would be a huge issue, especially at tier 9 and 10, where the EA is quite powerful there, especially against a squadron made up of just 5 planes, But like with the Issei, that was, again, a huge issue with it when it was released, and it did calm down after that, thankfully. But with future classes, if they keep doing this, which I really don't think they should, you're going to wind up with a case where you might have, because who knows what they're going to do next. Sure, the Kearsarge just have rocket planes, which I think was a really solid choice for it, but they might add in another one that has torpedoes or dive bombers. I think that's where they're going to start running into a lot of issues, because at that point, the cross drops are going to get kind of nutty, like we've seen with the Issei. When you had 3 players divvied up in an Issei all coordinating together, that's a major issue. But anyway, guys, tell me what you think about the hybrid ships below, especially with the 3 that we've seen in game. Do you think that they're going to be adding in more? Do you think they're probably done after these 3? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I just wanted to kind of spitball some more thoughts on the Kearsarge and kind of take a look back at the other 3 hybrid ships and talking about the potential future in the game. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I hope to catch you guys in the next one.